33.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17.
16.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9.
8.
7.
6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up.
Hi, and welcome to episode 49 of the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics and the fastest growing show on the internet. And hey, we're not going to disappoint you tonight. Hey, it's really sort of a hot topic these days with SEL and CRT and a bunch of other letters that's floating around our education system. And we actually have a teacher on tonight, and then we also have somebody who's actually is working with one of the parents groups here in Indiana. And I think it's going to be a good, lively discussion. We're going to, figure out, if you don't know what CRT is or SEL or some of these other letters, we're going to find out what that is tonight. And we do have the panel here tonight. And if you did not notice, our countdown is getting filled up there, but we still got a few openings. And I would like for you, if you want to do it, hey, you can just turn your phone sideways, tape yourself saying one of those empty numbers. I think 14, 15, and some others are open. And just send it to me via messenger, 2 strings in a can. I don't care how you send it to me. I'll get it put in the show, and then we'll have a full countdown. I'm just going to keep adding to it till we maybe get to 100. So we need that at the start of our show so our live viewership can get online and all that. So, and it's been fun getting all that collected. So, hey, let's get to this show. I hopefully you watched the Civil Discourse Now with Mark Small earlier tonight. They talked about climate change, and we're going to talk about tonight on this show, because there's a lot to talk about on this education system. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring on the panel here. We're going to bring on Lucy. And before I bring her on, I just want to warn you, she actually has purchased some equipment. I'm sure it has come out of that huge, huge salary she's paid to be on this show. So let's bring Lucy on and see. Hey, what's up, Lucy?
Hey, I'm just another brick in the wall.
Oh yeah, we don't need no education.
We don't need no thought control.
Yeah, you don't eat your pudding, you're not getting no meat. I know that goes on at your house.
Yeah.
So
of course.
Or you don't eat your meat, you don't get your pudding. Whatever. I got it.
Fresh and raw organic fruits and vegetables sans glyphosate, of course.
Yeah. So just your actual handle tonight is just another brick in the wall. So yeah. Hey, yeah, after my own heart, being a bricklayer and all that. So that's great. Well, it's good to see you're, upgrading your equipment. I mean,
yeah. It's much clearer. You can see all of the individual bricks. So that's, and I've done some tuck pointing in the past. I've had like the cracked fingers, from the lime that take weeks to heal. So I'm legit. Yeah, I know how to put each brick in that wall.
Myself in the winter and all that. But yeah, that's great. So we're going to go ahead and bring Tiffany on next. Tiffany, how are you this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Just here in the Fisher's studio. Just another person in front of the curtain.
That's what we have. And yeah, hey, if you didn't notice, Tiffany is now on the countdown, and I don't know who the person right after her is. I would just have to guess who that is. So, all right, we're going to bring Ed on and see what he's up to. Ed, how are you this evening?
Ed, great. Go Niners.
You have a team of the week. It's like you got like a bandwagon that you get on in the back of your yard or something. It seems
so
like
I will tell you right now, my wife just, if you ask her, she'll tell you she hates the game, and if you ask her which one, she'll just say all of them because she remembers everything. So.
Yes, she does hate
yes.
Well, hey, it's good to see y'all back. Hey, a week rolls around fast when there's deadlines, doesn't it? So, but wait, we're going to get this started because we have to. Now, how we're going to do this tonight? So we're going to bring on Rhonda Miller first. So I'm going to bring her on, and then we're going to put her in the hot seat. Maybe if I get her out there. There you go. And let's put me down here at the bottom. There we go. That's good enough right there. Hey, Rhonda, we want to welcome you to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a mini fresh take on politics. We're glad to have you. I know we've had Jennifer Williams in the past with Purple for Parents, but hey, it's good to see a new face for Purple for Parents. So how are you this evening?
I'm doing good, John. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, we are glad to have you. And so we're going to get right into it. And then how this is going to work is we're going to have some questions. I want the panel to do some quick questions for Rhonda. And I'll get this thing started with one of the questions that we had on our, on the People Over Politics. So we had, a lot of things. So we're just going to start out with the big question, SEL and social learning. And Rhonda, if you would take a second, maybe you could explain both of these and, yes or no, are they being taught and a couple things. And then we're going to let the panel ask you a couple questions.
Yeah, so those are very hot button items and happening in education. So we're now referring to it as radical progressive social emotional learning, which is basically retraining children on their attitudes, behaviors, values, and beliefs within the school system. And it's not necessarily going to coincide with parents instilling their children at home. So really, social emotional learning is rewiring the children to adopt a radical viewpoint that is basically wiring their brains, training them to think differently. And it coincides with critical race theory, which isn't necessarily being taught. It's under culturally responsive teaching is what's actually. Critical race theory is actually a college level course. It's the theory itself. But what they've done is they've taken, culturally responsive teaching in order to incorporate that in. So it's bringing in things of like whiteness and guilt and oppression, and it's dividing kids into groups. And that's how it's actually coming into the class. People don't understand that. When they see our RT, their school boards, they're like, well, we're not teaching that. But they're using culturally responsive teaching based off of theorists that the IDOE is using as resources. And so they're having lesson plans that are bringing this in various formats. It's coming in through every subject, which is what it's supposed to do. They'll set aside certain times of the day or the week to incorporate these SEL lessons as well. And so it's coming in ever nonchalantly in some of the more rural areas. And people don't understand the ramifications of it. Now you get into the bigger cities, and they're full on blown with the whole agenda, and it incorporates everything from sex to gender identity to sexual orientation to religion to undocumented, documented. There's a whole wheel from the Castle framework that incorporates these programs into the schools and into the classrooms.
Wow, that is, and that's one of the big arguments right now. Is or is it not being taught, and how is that look and that? So, Ed, I'm going to go ahead and go with you here and see what you got for a question for Rhonda, since you are from a big city named South Bend.
Oh yeah, that's huge. My big question here, and I laid it out last time we had someone from Purple for Parents. Like, could you? I still hear generalizations. Could you give us more specifics, like on you say it's being snuck in? Like, what can you give us like a specific example?
Yeah, so they'll put it in different lessons, but one in particular I'll bring up is an English assignment. Okay, so they may give the kids like a book to read, like All the Rage. Okay, so it's racially charged. It separates the kids into when they read the book, it divides them on where they stand on racial issues. They'll also bring in the whole LGBT agenda comes into this because just sexual orientation, gender identity. So whether you're an ally or you're not, it separates the kids categories. So it could be a math assignment as well. based on whiteness or racial tensions or racial issues. And in math, it's come through all these different subjects. And we had parents actually take multiple samples down to testimony yesterday and even last week to the committees as we were testifying and how seeing this come through their classrooms.
All right. And so let's go with Tiffany next and see what she has, if she has a question for you about this. So I'm pretty sure she probably does.
Sure. So, Rhonda, I agree with everything that you're saying. I've been involved with Fishers One. Definitely. We even hosted Jennifer McWilliams at one of our meetings here, and certainly I'm on board. So, for the people who aren't familiar with CRT and the theories and the social emotional learning, what's the number one thing that all parents need to know who have kids in public school?
So the number one thing I would say they need to know is that schools are getting away from teaching their kids academics and critical thinking skills, and they are rewiring them to have the government's values, attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs, and not what to think, but not how to think, but what to think. The government's telling the kids what to think based on their feelings.
Thank you.
All right. And then last but not least, what do you have to say, Brick in the Wall?
Is she on mute?
Yeah,
which I don't mind.
Yep, it was my husband again. You know, he bought a universal remote and then complained to me that it doesn't control the universe. So anyway.
And it's hard to mute Lucy.
Yeah, there's a dad joke in there. So Rhonda, just drawing back on my personal experiences, remember the federal government came in and started taking over education in the 70s, and it's all been downhill from there, where we're now told what to think, not how to think. Everything that you said, I can put an exclamation point on. But to add my personal experience, I am a victim of outcome-based education. If you've read about that, a great book on that is Educating for the New World Order by B.K. Eakman. And that drove a lot of the decision for the years that we homeschooled our children to get them out of the system. Myself, as a freshman in high school, so this is circa 1984, dating myself. When I say I was a victim of outcome-based education, in the English class, which is where this was happening in my school, we had an assignment, and the assignment was we took the 30 kids in the class, we put everybody into equal groups, and then we told everybody that you're on a boat, and there are 9 spots on the boat, but there are 10 of you. Each of you get to pick a profession. So you're a teacher, you're a mom, you're a preacher, you're a surgeon. And you all have to collectively decide who gets thrown off the boat, because the boat only has capacity of 9 and there's 10 of you. So one of you must die so that the rest of you might live. And I've been a disruptor ever since I was a little girl. So I immediately wanted to know, well, do we have any rope? Can we tread water for an hour at a time and then, have people rotate on and off, so your chance of getting eaten by a shark is less or dying is less? And no, that was all against the rules. The only thing that was acceptable was decide who will live and who will die. And so I made it really hard for the teacher that day. And I like to think that she was proud of me, because I don't think that she was really into the lesson that much. But of course, that is what the curriculum is. So good teachers get forced to teach bad curriculum in order to do exactly what Hitler said. I don't need you because I got your kids. So do you see any outcome-based education similar to what I described, or do we have a new, even worse form of oppression on our children?
Well, I would say in some cases, Lucy, I think it's even worse because it's gotten so charged on feelings that I think it's become dangerous for the children, and it's become mentally abusive in the way they're teaching these lessons. And the schools are touting mental health issues and blaming the parents, when in reality the schools are creating those mental health issues assignments with the separation and making kids feel guilty for who they are and their skin color and what they believe and what the values are that their parents instilled in them, and they're creating this division between parent and child through all of this structure, and it's creating massive amounts of mental instability, of which the government's going to come in and be the savior then. So I would say in many cases, Lucy, I think it's even worse.
How much of this do you think is driven by the pharmaceuticals industry's need to increase profits by making everything a diagnosis, which of course needs a pill?
It's absolutely huge. And what most people do not understand is back in 2001, Lilly Endowment, who gets their money from Lilly Pharmaceutical, set the foundation along with the Gates Foundation and laid all of this out, and they built on it from there. And so this isn't the first time, I would have to say, historically, that Lilly has been involved in mind manipulation, if you look at it in context.
Wow, that's
well, they've certainly manipulated Holcomb's mind and his bank account. Looks like he's doing their agenda.
Well, now he's decided that so many kids are so mentally, unstable with all this COVID stuff that now he's working with Lilly to, here comes the government. We're here to save everybody. But historically, when you look back through history, Lilly has been known to provide LSD for mind control experiments, and so this is not, it's not out of the realm for them to do it again.
Can I ask a just quick question? When we're talking timeline, so when is SEL and when does this first start coming into play here?
Well, some people will say, they've been doing SEL, for years in the schools, and it wasn't called social emotional learning. But when you look historically at what happened 20 years ago, Lilly gave millions of dollars to set up what became known as Center for Excellence in Leadership of Learning at the University of Indianapolis. And then the Gates Foundation started dumping money in, and they built this platform. And then you lead up until the Lilly Counseling Initiative that took place in 2015, 2016, I think it was, and schools all competed for this money. And then in 2017 and 2018, the money was doled out in the fall of those years. And then what happened was our local school decided they were going to pass a referendum. So it included mental health counselors. And I'm just giving you a historical context of how this all built upon each other. So once that referendum passed, I filed an open records request with our local school and obtained all of this historical documentation that most people do not know. And it sent me 3 months on a rabbit trails of uncovering all these things that were coming in. And it was all social emotional learning, mental health, social justice, radical progressivism that was built on this money from Lilly. And then what happened is in 2019 was when we saw all those massive amounts of bills at the State House dealing with social emotional learning, attitudes, values, behaviors, beliefs, the data tracking, and the mental health. So that's what led up to that. So then all those bills went through the State House, and many of them ended up getting passed. And that's what implemented it into the schools in various forms. And now we're seeing the product of what happened 2 years ago, and the legislators own it.
Can we point out that the bills and legislation are not written by the legislators, but instead they're written by the companies for whom the profits flow?
Yes.
Well, you'll have that with lobbyists. Okay, so I want to get Alex on here, and he's having some technical fun tonight. So, and then Rhonda, when we come back, don't let me forget to ask you about a little bit of your background and how you got involved with Purple Or Parent. I sort of jumped the gun getting into the discussion because I knew it was going to be good tonight. So let's just go ahead and bring Alex on here, and let's take Rhonda off, and let's see if we can't get him out here. Oh, is he going to be there? Is he? I see a black picture, but we lost him. So let's see. I'll go there. Yeah, he's on his phone trying to, and he lives in Elkhart, as you know, the land of the internet. It's not there. Oh, he's trying to come back on. Let's see if we can get him.
You lost Rhonda too, or did you just tuck her backstage?
The wonders of technology. Okay, let's see. I think I have him. Alex, can you hear me? He's got an interesting voice. Sounds like music. Okay, so here we go. Here, I'll go out here. Alex, you probably have audio only. Can you hear?
I can hear me.
Okay,
really?
Good. So, hey, Alex, tell us.
And I saw in the chat.
Yeah, we're having some serious.
So close.
Yeah, somebody suggested in the chat that I try audio only, and I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, that's probably what it is, because if you try to do both, it really keeps throwing you off. and then it looks like you're having
Yeah,
even
sorry,
trouble getting.
I'm really close, but I think I understood what you said. I'm sorry, it's choppy for me.
Right, and that's what we're getting on this end, where we can't hear you that much. So, and that now we've lost Tiffany. So, oh look, we got a picture with Alex. So, and then we lost Alex. So it's only going to be a couple people. So let's see here. Let's go with this. Okay, hey, now it's down to 2 people. This is like musical chairs. When the music stops, everybody goes off there. Okay, we got Tiffany back. Tiffany's lighting fell down, and we've lost our guest.
I know, right?
So I just don't think it's going to work out. The off the phone and all that, it's just very difficult. And I know that if he could just go to audio, that would work, but it's not really thing. Oh, look here, Dorn says you need a gaffer. I think that's a movie talk for we need some stage people here. So
I need a gaffer and a grip.
Yeah. We all need a grip. Now, who did I lose? Who else did I lose? Oh, I didn't lose anybody. I'm going to bring Rhonda back on. And I don't know if we're going to be able to. I wish I had a way to get Alex back on because he's a teacher from up in Elkhart, and I wanted to hear his perspective on things. And hopefully he's not teaching a class on StreamYard or live streaming because it was not a very good connection tonight for that. So,
hey, John,
okay.
Can you kick me backstage for a second?
What's that?
Can you kick me backstage for a second?
Sure.
So I have a question for Rhonda.
Hold on a second, Tiffany, before you go. Rhonda, I don't want to, I jumped the gun earlier. I want Rhonda to tell us how she got involved with Purple for Parents and just a little bit of background first. And it looks like Ed might be trying to get Alex on the phone. So maybe we can get a phone conversation, at least get audio, because I really want to hear his perspective as a teacher. So Rhonda, go ahead, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a mother of 3. We have 2 older girls and we have a teenage son. And I started actually digging into education back when Common Core was the fight, and started digging in and started uncovering things that were pretty alarming. And I originally was with the Indiana Liberty Coalition for several years. And then I left there and I started watching Jennifer as she started Purple for Parents, just the platform on Facebook. And then I ended up leaving Indiana Liberty Coalition. And several weeks later, I reached out to Jennifer and I said, hey, how about we join forces and see what we can do for parents? And so that's how I got to join Purple for Parents. And we became a 501c3 organization, statewide organization. So we have representation in all 92 counties. And we also have, believe it or not, people who follow us across the nation. So it's exciting to see what has happened and the things that we've been blessed to do and the people we've been able to meet. And I tell you, Indiana is a great state. And so there's a lot of great Hoosiers out here. And it's been fun traveling the state and getting to know people.
All right, that is, and that's how we get involved. It starts affecting us, and then next thing you know, you're knee deep in it, trying to figure it out. I appreciate that. The do something mentality is much appreciated. So Tiffany, you had a question. Did you?
Forget? Sure. So I know that with the House being back in session, and there's lots of bills that they're looking at and talking about. There's the House bill. I think there are a couple of House bills, and then the Senate bill. Which, Rhonda, do you think best addresses the needs of parents here in Indiana?
Well, obviously, we fully support House Bill 1040. That is the most comprehensive bill that would have addressed everything that parents are up in arms over. It addresses the masking, the mandates, the vaccines. It addresses social emotional learning. It addresses CRT. And it puts in some real teeth and some real ramifications for things that are taught that shouldn't be. And so that is the bill that we really would like to see. There's also another one, I think it's 1231, that is also pretty comprehensive. So that would be our second favorite. But unfortunately, that isn't what legislators and the leadership decided to push. And so we're in this battle of what's really going to happen. We have in the Senate, we've been pushing to reverse Senate exemption for at least 2 years now. Last year, our champion, Senator Toms, authored that piece of legislation, and our GOP leadership failed to do anything with it. And so he brought it back this year, and unfortunately, it got hijacked and shoved into these weaker pieces of legislation that they're trying to ram through the process right now. So it's been quite a battle.
Okay, I got a quick question, and I'm going to put this up here. This question, and this was one that didn't get a lot of attention on this. Now, our first one had over 100 people take the survey, but this is, do you think the teachers unions help or hurt students and teachers? And is this where the pressure comes from? From that, we had 9 people say hurt and 8 to say help. So, that's pretty much an even 50-50 on that. Is that where the pressure comes for these legislatures, or they just go home and just dream this up? Oh, I just want to vote for this lesser, watered down version. How, in your opinion, does that happen?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of it's the teachers unions. You've got the school board associations, the principals association, the superintendents association, and you've got the library federation all fighting back on this stuff. And as we were testifying last year, trying to repeal our obscenity exemption, those were all the entities that were testifying against us. And they were justifying keeping this in place, and which allows obscenity to be given to our children. So those entities that are claiming that they're for protections of children and fighting for children are actually the ones that were all for sexualizing them. So they apply massive amounts of pressure to the legislature, and their emails and phone calls come in by the thousands to them. And so they are a real problem, and they're heavily funded by George Soros and many others. And so they have unfortunately the power and the fortitude to apply that pressure. And we just, on our side, parents are just now starting to rally behind what's their children and protecting them. And it's taking some major effort to try and push back.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on the union issue, because I used to be a union steward for CWA, Communications Workers of America, and I'm also a libertarian. And so most people would think that libertarians are anti-union, but I'm not. I am pro-voluntary organization, that you can, organize with whom you want. Here's where I see the biggest problem. Teachers unions are looking to the public to fund their jobs. So now you literally have an entire organization whose job it is to bilk the taxpayer for more. And of course, that agenda just continues to roll. And so that's one of the big problems I have with the unions, outside of the fact that, they protect people who quite frankly should be pushed off a cliff after they hurt children, and instead they protect them and get them moved to other schools to hurt more children.
Yeah, that's what people don't understand, is they actually collect all of the dues, which is our tax dollars, right? The teachers, we pay the teachers pay the dues, and then they use those dues to try to undermine our whole entire system. And so it's very interesting. And you go back to 2019 when they had their NEA organizational conference in Houston. You go back to that and you look and watch and see what they were saying as President was having his big rally in DC. And they were down there trying to undermine everything he was doing. And you go and you read their business items. It's definitely not something that conservatives are going to push for. It's all undermining our entire system and trying to take our country down. Is essentially what the teachers unions fund.
Speaking of money, I posted up here one of the statistics that I found on a website of education spending, the long and the short of it. And some of the stuff on there really amazed me. It's about $10,000 per student. And on average, and these are a little bit older things, the increase in spending for our school is high, like over 50% of our budget goes towards education. So it's pretty big business. And each classroom, $200,000 for a year for a 20 student. And so can you speak on that? It doesn't seem like more money is helping this. And I know that this is definitely going to be a Lucy question, because, libertarians, they claim to be efficient people and they want to get all your money. They don't even think taxes should be paid, but if they are going to be paid, let's not waste the money. So where are we at on how much money is being spent? Because it doesn't seem like our test scores are rising as fast as expenditures and expenses and taxes are rising and funds. So where's Purple for Parents on that, and where are most parents that you talk to on that?
Yeah, you're right. Over state budget goes to education, and the test scores keep going lower and lower. And I was just on the computer tonight looking at our proficiency rates, and it's pathetic. Less than half of our kids are able to perform proficiently in subjects, but yet here we go. Social emotional learning will teach them how to feel, right? And so it is devastating to think that we're wasting so much tax money on poor and underperforming schools, public schools. So we have really advocated for school choice and for parents to pull their children out. They're really, when you look at public education historically, it's not failing. That's what we tell people. The schools are not failing. They're doing exactly what they were designed to do. So get your kids out. And so we've been promoting that across the state, and we're advocating for parents to join together, form their own co-ops. If you can pull your kid out, you've got the voucher money now, but that does come with strings attached. But that is an option for those who want immediate relief but yet can't afford it. Pull your kid out. Be very careful of the private schools you put them in, because many of the private schools are caving to this agenda too because of the strings. But we advocate for parental choice as far as education goes, and I would love to get back to where we see it, prior to when public education really took off, and get back to where parents had more control over what their children are learning.
Okay, well, we're gonna. Alex is backstage, and it looks like he's got a good connection. So I want to get a teacher's perspective. Rhonda, hang on. We're going to bring you back on, and we'll probably bring both you and Alex on at some point. But I want to, sort of get the point counterpoint and contrast, or want to get the difference of opinions on this. So hang with us. We're going to try this again. Let's bring Alex on here. Let's see. Okay, and let me get Rhonda. Oh, there we go. Tiffany, we see you.
How are we doing?
There you are,
everybody.
Hey, we can see you and sort of hear you. So
Hi, Alex.
You may have to still go to audio.
Sorry, the technical difficulties are just winning right, but maybe I've made a little progress.
Yeah. Hey, why don't you go to turn your camera off and see if we just can't have audio? I think because you're still cutting out some. Yeah, that I fixed it.
You meant turn your camera off.
Hey, we're making progress. We got a picture. It's.
I want to say hi to Carrie and Rusty. They said hi to me in the chat. So I just wanted to say hi.
Okay, let's see if we can get him on here. Hold on. I got him with audio only. I'll put my ugly face up there. So can you hear me, Alex?
All right, you guys, can you hear me? This is Alex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can hear you. I think we might have something here. So you talk and I'll move my mouth like I'm talking in your voice.
Well, I appreciate that. I never like myself on video anyway, so I'm glad to see you up there instead of me.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have to apologize. I did not get to hear everything that was said. I did get the gist of it. It was cutting in and out, and I was trying to move around and get to a different spot. I think the thought that comes to mind immediately is, we all want what's best for kids and our students, and a lot of people are working hard, and it is interesting the topics that we're talking about right now. I think it's really individual, not even by school corporation, but sometimes even by classroom, what is taking place, and it's obviously a big undertaking to have some sense for what's going on, or I guess beyond some sense, a clear sense.
Yeah. So Alex, tell us, now you're a teacher. Give us, where you're teaching, how long you've taught, and what your subject matter is. And it sounds like you've been a teacher for a while, and maybe give us a little perspective on what it was like and what it is like.
Yeah, I've been teaching math for nearly 25 years in Elkhart. Um, I grew up in a little town called Bristol, which is also part of Elkhart Community Schools. So I graduated from Elkhart Community Schools, and I teach here too. And I had my son, who's 24 now, go through the same school corporation, and I was always pleased with the opportunities that he had. And he's doing real well. My wife and I are very proud of him. And I guess that's the quick summary of my experience here. I work with a lot of great kids. Um, the administration has been supportive. As far as major changes over 25 years, I would say that students now, and I think this is true of society, even, the five of us, this is probably true. We want kind of instant gratification. It's a lot easier to do a Google search for something now and um, order the food from wherever you would like to eat from that evening than it was 20 years ago. So I think attention spans and patience have declined. I mean, those would be the things that I would say are different, and that is evident with our students as well. They're used to being entertained, so I feel like being able to grab their attention and hold it has become more difficult as a result.
Okay, before we get I got some teacher questions because I've recently been a substitute teacher, and my class gets pretty loud. I like loud kids. I had 4 kids; they were all crazy and loud. And is that normal to have loud people in your class, or do you keep them pretty quiet? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. When you get a group of 25 students together, there are many that want to communicate, which I think is fantastic. And then there are often a handful that would like for it to be quiet, and that's part of the balancing act is trying to maximize the amount of time where everybody feels comfortable.
Yeah, I just that's one of the things I noticed, just the wide arrangement, a wide array of we're talking about social emotional learning here. I mean, it was like some of them act like second graders, and I was teaching seventh grade science, and some of them act like seniors in high school. But I didn't think there was very many actual seventh graders in there because there was some people that really wanted to get their work done, and some kids that just wanted to goof off and and that, and it's like, and then how much respect a substitute teacher gets. It's like, oh, okay. So that was an interesting experience from on that. So
Yeah, and something that's amazing is some of those kids that it looks like they're goofing off, and they probably are to some extent. That's just the way they process information, and again, trying to figure out how to get everything set up so everybody has an opportunity to feel good about the learning that's taking place. That's really one of the more difficult things to do on a regular basis.
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the entertainment thing, and there's just a lot of things that kids can be distracted with. So Ed, let's this is your guest, so I'm gonna let you start out with a question. So Ed, what do you have for Alex?
First of all, I just want to say my brother is 21 years younger than me. And when he was growing up, I was thinking, good God, this kid is the loudest kid I've ever heard. And then my children came, and I was like, I thought he was bad. They're nothing. And so I am with you on that page. Um, just discuss, I know that this topic, when we talk about SEL and CRT, gets discussed, pretty wide. I'm just curious, like your school, the students, the parents that you're dealing with, how many do you hear from on a regular basis, or are you guys getting feedback at the school, or do you kind of give what's going on at the ground level where you're teaching at?
I know he's on a bit of a delay, but Ed, you might have jinxed him by asking him a question. Just saying.
I know.
I hear like every other syllable.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I
It
can't
almost
even
sounds like
hear
they're-
him.
Yeah.
Shall we have some small
I
talk?
got the gist of the question.
Okay, here we go. We got him. That's a good idea, Tiffany. Let's see if we can't get Alex back going again here. Let's go to small talk, and Mark's going to talk about, guess what? CRT and SEL, critical race theory, and social emotional learning. So let's see if we can't get Alex back on. I was starting to enjoy his comments there, and then this darn technology sometimes, I tell you.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. Two things for topics tonight. One real quick, critical race theory is not being taught in schools. Our history is racist. We should have a longer discussion of this and not be focused on stuff that's not historical. It's part of our history. The other part is social and emotional learning. Now, I read about facets of this, and it seems to me it's like this. We're in social and emotional learning, we're teaching kids in schools to think in such ways that will cause them to be independent in thinking, and so they will be independent in thought and depart from what they're being taught is the truth and fact and this and that. We're teaching them to think for themselves. And what's the alternative? Well, I guess it would be having people try and pound the Jesus into people's heads with a Bible as being right and wrong. When I was a kid in school, and this is a long time ago, a kid in our grade, he and his three brothers, two or three brothers, and his mom were killed in an auto crash. He was in the Cub Scouts at the same time as I was. We had to go to the funeral, and we were told to dress in our Cub Scout uniforms. Everybody wore the shirt, nobody bought the pants. They were like kind of geeky. But we showed up to the funeral. I had never seen a grown man cry, and his father was practically carried into the church. Nobody asked us beforehand or explained to us what our job was going to be. But after the service was over, we were pallbearers. I don't know whose casket I helped carry. His brothers were younger than him, so I don't think that they were in the Cub Scouts or had that many friends that would have shown up being able to carry a casket. We learned about those things. We learned a lot on our own. I don't remember talking to any adults about it at the time, and we didn't have any kind of counseling or anything. But you know what? It would have been good to reflect on that. And that was one of the big lessons of my life, was seeing what kind of an impact that had on somebody. Those are the values that children learn in school. They're learning things like that as it is. Rather than have a vacuum or have something by rote, they need to learn these things and discuss them. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. Those are negatives. Yeah, I think that we need stuff like that in the public schools. We need to teach about our racist history too. I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk, Peace, Love, Happiness, Freedom. Catch me on Civil Discourse Now, Piers 7 on Tuesdays, right before this show. Bye-bye.
All right. I got Rhonda back. We totally lost Alex now. So Rhonda, you were able to listen to that. And, I think that's some of the confusion is social. I think we want all of our kids to be emotional, be able to handle things like, say, the tragedy of some of their classmates being killed in a car crash, or any more these days with shootings, school shootings. And I know when I was at school, one of our principals was killed in a car crash, and I remember it was sort of a big deal. But I think that the difference is that being taught how to think and how to deal with these emotions, and not really learning yourself. I don't know. Can you help me understand maybe what the difference is of what I'm thinking about here?
That's a good question.
Well, I guess the question becomes is who's responsible and who has the claim on children? Is it the government or is it the parents? The parents should be the ones teaching those things at home. The government has no right to step in and teach children the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs. If you want to help them along emotionally to work through some of those, tragic scenarios, that's one thing. That's what counselors have been at the school to do. But when you incorporate mental health counselors into a school that's mentally creating instability in children, and then you want to capitalize on that, and you want to override the parents, that's where the government oversteps their bounds. And I think it's very dangerous to set the precedence that government schools have the right to do that.
Yeah, and I think that is separates the men from the boys, as they say, on, how should we do this? And I think it's, Alex hit on that. It's like, each class is different. Each person is different. And, one of the things that I think that I notice about adults is they forget what it's like to be a kid. And all I remember about being a kid was it seemed like a school day lasted 3 weeks. And, I got bored and, it needs to be fun. It needs to be exciting. And, I had ADHD. So, the early years, they weren't too much fun for me. It just seemed like, it just was like, I'm not this serious about school. So I see these things that we're talking about now and parents getting involved. And there's a lot of people that are single parents. It's those type of things. So did anybody on the panel have another question for Rhonda? I can either do a banner question, or if you got something else, just go ahead and throw it out there.
Well, I'm really curious because, I've done homeschool, public school, private school. I mean, we've run the gamut with our kids, whatever we felt was best for them at that particular time. But the theme throughout this for me has always been, I am the parent who has the responsibility to make sure that my children grow up to be good citizens, good actors in society. Their social and emotional learning is my responsibility. What I'm hoping for the school to do when I send them to school is to take care of those things that I may not necessarily be great at. Like, I'm great at financial math, but I'm a little bit weak on calculus, those sorts of things. So I'm a mortgage broker by trade. So, I can calculate interest rates and payments in my head, but
not the area under a curve. I got you. Not the area.
Yeah. Sine, cosine, tangent, all that crap. So I guess I'm really curious because as a libertarian, the very first thing that I want to do is look at the Constitution, compare it to what's going on and saying, does this meet the master contract? And clearly the eradication of all the alphabet agencies would be the very first thing to do, right? If you've got the Department of Education that's deciding to take control of the minds and hearts of our children, then we need to eliminate them. So I guess my question for you is, as parents who are in the firm belief that it's our responsibility, not that we own our children because we don't own other human beings, but that the responsibility to make sure that these children grow up does not lay with the government. How do we make sure that the government doesn't thwart our responsibility?
Well, that's where it becomes vital, Lucy, to start fighting legislation where they're encroaching on that authority. I will tell you, when we were in Senate testimony last week, over SB 167. I don't know if you watched that, but it was frightening, the number of people who got up and spoke against parents having rights over their children. It was very eye-opening. And then you have these youngsters coming up, these high school kids, and I think there might have been a college student or two that got up and spoke, and they also spoke against parents having the rights over them. And they but indoctrination all day long when they spoke. It was very alarming. And so if we don't put measures into place and we don't reverse course on this whole education system, we're in a world of hurt, and we will not see the fruits and the liberties we have enjoyed at this point if we don't shift course. And some of it has to happen at the local level, obviously. But we've got to do something about the state mandates and the state interfering in the parental authority as well.
It may be too late. I mean, the only thing that we really can and should do, whether you're a Christian or some other faith, is to withdraw your support from society. to simply separate yourself out. I mean, isn't that what we're called to do, to shake the dust off of our feet and to come out of Babylon?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's why when I go and speak and now we show the mind polluters, our documentary, and the big push behind that documentary is for parents to get their kids out of publication. It's too far gone, in my view, to be saved. And so the only way to save your children is to get out of the system, period. A lot of people, we push back. Sports are a big thing. We're so preoccupied with that supposedly public schools bring that we don't realize the dangers that also lie within. So, very valid point that you raised, Lucy.
So, Rhonda, I have a quick question. So, for those of us who kind of had a glimpse of it, because I live up here in Fishers and with Hamilton Southeastern Schools, you kind of see a glimpse of what can happen. But for a lot of people who aren't very familiar with CRT and social emotional learning, can you tell them what you foresee 20 years down the road if we don't do something now to change what's going on in our schools?
Well, I don't even think you have to look that far, Tiffany. I think it's just a matter of just a few years. I mean, we are so far down the train of communism, it's not even funny. When you go and you look at the 45 communist goals, they're all finished, and nearly 50 of them deal with education, and every single one of them have been accomplished. So, we're very fast approaching the cliff to communism.
Wow. So
I'm just curious here. So, and I got jumped out of the conversation earlier when we were talking about the teachers union. I'm just curious, for a state that is controlled by Republicans, like Democrats, doesn't even matter if they show up down at the state house because Republicans just go full tilt. It's hard for me when you say that the Indianapolis is afraid of the teachers unions when it's all Republicans and you don't have. So can you connect the dots on me there? Because this isn't something that happened overnight. I mean, we've had how long of Republican control in the House, and that's still not getting taken care of.
No, you're right, Ed. I would just tell you, go back to the communist goals. Number 17 that says both. Well, anybody who's done some research on Volk found out that he's listed on the CCP friendly governor list. So there's a lot of rhinos that are sitting in our GOP party that are caving left and right agenda.
I think the answer is even simpler than that, Rhonda. The answer is it's federal control of the curriculum, and you don't get the money from the federal government unless you toe the line on the curriculum. Doesn't matter if you're in a red state, you're still going to get communist education.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Alex Newman points that out in our documentary, that it's, people in red states, they are naive and thinking that it's happening here. And it absolutely is, because we've been infiltrated. So we are absolutely headed down if we don't shift course.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, Rhonda, about the infiltration, and you talked about it earlier, a lot happened when we accepted the Lilly grant. That changed a lot of things. And then I know here at the local level, we've got some Democrat. Well, you don't have to declare your party when you run for school board. So we have some people on our school board who are not necessarily as conservative as the state is. So we've got some nuances and changes there. And so it all has created this atmosphere. And one of the things that seems to be interesting is I kind of think, how like sometimes a PTO is pretty much just a woman dominated thing. It seems like our school boards had become highly feminized, which is not a bad thing because there's lots of great female leaders out there. But as this money came in and there was the influence on the curriculum, it seemed like a lot of men and our legislators in higher office just kind of turned a blind eye. It was like, it's the school, it's okay. It's football games and reading tests and math tests and and I'm Gen X. You know what I'm saying? Like, school was everything for me. I graduated high school in 1991, loved school every day, was the biggest nerd in the world, learned something every day. if my third grade teacher hadn't got me in glasses, I would be blind to this day and I'd be an underachiever. But schools, for us Gen Xers who now have kids in school, we depended on our schools for everything, and they were so much. This is before the internet. This is before YouTube. And I think as the parent of a child who's graduated high school, we thought that the schools were going to do right by our kids. So I would say there are a handful of people and groups that fell asleep at the wheel. And now we find ourselves in a situation where schools are teaching our kids how to think. If you've ever sat down with teenagers at a dinner table and you've asked them a couple of questions, you're like, whoa. It's kind of like scratch your head and you're like, how are these people going to pay into the Social Security system? I'm screwed. So, I think that if you don't have the opportunity to talk to teenagers and young people, you should make it a point so that you will understand their thoughts on society, making money, having families, participating in society. I think that you just really have to get a sense for what's going on, what the impact will be to society. It will be very, very different than what we're used to.
That's absolutely right. And so, I'm not sure you're aware, but again, back to our documentary that we have, my colleague Monica Klein about in the end how the CDC has a network that they've set up for schools to become everything from within. It's called whole community health, I think is what it's referred to, and we've posted a link to it on our Facebook page. But they incorporate everything: health, mental, vision, the whole gamut, so that parents don't have to take time off from work. They don't have to worry about taking their kids to these appointments. They can just send them, and I'm worried about my kid having sex. Well, don't worry, they'll give them condoms and contraceptives. And, if the kid, they're confused, the school has now lashed onto them because they're, transitioning, then they can send them over to get, these therapies. And it's, the schools are becoming every aspect of the parent. And unfortunately, parents are loving it because then they don't have to take time off from work, or they don't have to, the inconvenience of it that they might find it. And it's because it won't even take another 10 years, I don't think. And we'll see a completely different society.
That's sad because everybody knows that having children is inconvenient. It's like 18 years, 20 years of inconvenience, and we sign up for it. But, I do think that, parents have to be involved because, and there are a lot of great kids out there. And, some kids do have gender issues. But I think when stuff like that's going on, I think that's definitely something that parents need to be involved in, especially if it's diagnosed according to the DSM-9 or DSM-10 and it is true gender dysmorphic disorder and it needs to be treated, or if it's just a kid that's questioning. I mean, let parents do their jobs. Let teachers teach. Teach me history, teach me math. Don't necessarily give me your spin on it, but teach. Make it so that I can pass the standardized test. Help me to, pass the SAT if I'm going on to college. Steer me toward welding or construction if that's what I need. We need to make sure that we're producing a generation of people who, number one, can support themselves, and number two, can participate in society. It's not going to work if we have a bunch of people who are just kind of mediocre and blah. That to me, I mean, they're crazy adjectives, but that's where I see us, with just a bunch of mediocre kids.
Well, you're absolutely right. And one point I would make, and part of what you said, is when going back to that Little League Counseling Initiative money that was doled out, and watching the individual that they were bringing back here, that funding to train all of our schools on the Counselors Association, on the ethical standards and their position statements. Tiffany, if you have not read through those are frightening, because they training them on how to violate parental rights on some of those position statements, and they're backdooring this stuff without parental consent. So the whole aspect of the schools violating parental authority and then creating a divide in parent-child is alarming.
I personally, I mean, I've spoken on this before on one of our previous issues, especially having a wife that's worked in the mental health field. That the assumption here that we were making is that we can say all we want that parents need to step up and take that responsibility. There's a lot of parents that don't. There are a lot of kids that are getting left out. And so, me personally, it's a struggle here because I can hear what you say. I came from a Catholic school background, and we learned things a lot differently. But I also see those kids. I mean, I think I've said it before here that one of my wife's kids, or one of the kids that she worked with, like this parent was selling their medicine that they were being prescribed, and he's running having schizophrenic issues running down the street. And so I'm kind of torn there, like where do we step in on some of these issues and some of these that are parent driven.
Yeah, because clearly the answer to to mental health issues in someone's home is to propagandize and direct the rest of the children into the same mental health issues. Sarcasm.
You raised a good, and I would just say, you know what, there's always been a struggle with some kids that don't have the support at home or whatnot, but what's happening with these social emotional programs is they're lumping all the kids into trauma-based scenarios and this multi-tiered systems of supports. So they're thinking every kid is coming from a trauma-based home or background, and then they're advocating for these programs for everybody instead of helping those children that are truly in need and truly do need the supports. They're lumping everybody together.
I agree with you, especially when it comes to when it talks about black and white kids, talks about, your black kids, they're oppressed, and your white kids are the oppressor. That is the most confusing thing I've ever heard. And for them to assume that every black child is oppressed and that every white child is an oppressor is absurd. And it is so very, very divisive. Anything that you read about racial harmony says that people need to have meaningful experiences with people who are different from them. We need, if it's a basketball team, if it's a cheerleading team, if it's, everybody, a lot of people will say, oh my goodness, I had this college roommate, or I bunked with this guy when I was in the military and he was different from me. And God, I learned a lot. We need to make sure that we don't create artificial barriers so that we put walls between people and walls between children, because then we're right back. We have mentally segregated people, which is the exact opposite of why we desegregated the schools. And we're just setting up these barriers and we're giving kids this unnecessary baggage. And it is that, to me, that is the worst part of it, when we allow these schools to put these barriers between kids when they should be enjoying each other, enjoying learning, and just the differences between the kids. Because at the end of the day, you're a young person and there's going to be different people in your school. There's going to be different people at work. How in the heck is a young person going to transition to the workforce if they go in believing either they're instantly oppressed that before they even show up to work, or that they're an oppressor and they're sweeping the floors? You know what I'm saying? It's like we're really making this mindset that it just isn't constructive for our American society. This isn't who we are.
So
no, you're absolutely right.
Before you answer that, I want to go ahead and put this up. This would be a good time for the poll question of how well do you think the education/school systems are doing teaching our kids? We had 49 say poor job, 22 reasonable, and 11 great, and 1 not sure. So that's a pretty wide margin of what some people think about how well they're doing this. And we could go back to the 90s when everybody got a trophy. And, that could be sort of that's a sort of a socialistic mentality, is like, hey, just show up. There's no competition. It's all good. You get your trophy. And I had to deal with some of those kids that came through that at the college level in the fraternity when I was a fraternity advisor at Ball State. And it was very eye-opening of the skills that these kids did not have when they got away from home. And that's at the college level. So I think that what I'm hearing here tonight from a lot of the comments and is that, hey, this is a dangerous road we're going down. And so let's go ahead and wind this up with maybe some solutions on what do we do to fix it. I think this could go a whole nother hour very easily, but we're going to have you back on, Rhonda, after the dust settles with these bills and see if we did actually get one with some teeth, or if it got watered down, or whatever whatever happened to it. And then, by the way, I did ask to get Bob Baining come on, because I know that he's been taking a little bit of heat for this, because he is the House of Representatives in Indiana chairman for the education system. So, hey, I think he's like Desi Arnaz says, hey, Lucy, you got some explaining to do. So, but we'll see if we can't get him on, because I know it was sort of short notice, and I think he's been getting bombarded with stuff. So, and I do know him. He's just south of Indicator here for me. So I will run into him and see about getting some answers. So let's use that premise of, hey, what can we do to fix some things? And we'll start with you, Rhonda, and then we'll have another little round of questions here, and then we're going to do the conspiracy theory. And I don't really have one yet, but I'll make one up between now and then. So go ahead, Rhonda, tell me maybe what some solutions might be.
So I will tell you, so the solutions that we're finding that the Hoosiers are coming together on is their moms are linking arms with other moms, and they're rescuing their children. And you're seeing the American spirit alive and well. And that is very, very encouraging to me. So I think it's finding the ingenuity and the creativity that the American spirit has in order to save our children.
Yep. I think that is happening. So, Lucy, what you have always solutions, and usually it's overthrowing the government and blaming Bill Gates for it. But what is your solution that you might come up with?
It's not about overthrowing the government. It's limiting the government to its constitutional mandate. The fact is, we were overthrown as a population. Was overstepped. So
yeah, I set you up on that. That's what I do.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I can stay on my moral frame and moral high horse. I'm calling all parents who love their children to be involved at the school level, and if appropriate, to take your kids out of school. Not everybody can homeschool, which is it's a sad thing. That's mostly government created, because we have to have one parent working to support the government and the other parent working to support the family because of taxes. But in every way, shape, or form, you have got to fight back. And the best thing I can tell you to do from one parent to another is to eliminate the tell, lie vision. It is called programming for a reason. And when your children are in front of the programming, they're getting exactly what Hollywood wants them to know. And it ain't good. So come out of Babylon.
Turn off the TV and go outside and play. That's what I'm hearing there. So, Tiffany, what, I mean, you have been quite vocal tonight, and I appreciate that. And we had some people, they were saying amen and let's go. So can you carry that forward with some solution-based comments?
So I want to go to the comment that Janet Dixon Gernand made, a blessed inconvenience. That's what I should have said. Children are a blessed inconvenience. And for a lot of people, they're going to have to get their faces out of their phones and get off of the Xbox, and people are going to have to parent. You know, I think one of the worst things in the world is when you're a parent and you miss the opportunity to tell your kids about sex, how to drink responsibly, financial literacy, how to get a job, how to treat people. When we don't get to tell them that people are different and it's not our job to judge people, you know, we really have to get back to interacting with our kids and doing that social emotional learning at the home and giving our values to our kids. Michaela, my daughter, graduated from Cathedral, and I don't know, maybe it was her freshman or sophomore year, and we were talking about homosexuals, and she was telling me, you know, how wrong it is and how homosexuality is a sin. And, you know, she's going on and on. I said, well, you know, Kayla, I know that's what they taught you in school, but just remember, we have a number of friends who are homosexual. And I went through a list of people that we know. And I said, you know, Kayla, we've been friends with these people for a long time. So I hope that in your heart, you know, you will be able to respect them as people and understand that it's not our job to judge them. You know, that was what was most important to me is that she not judge the people who've been in her life for some time. But that was my job as a parent, because at the end of the day, her friends of friends, daycare providers, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not our job to judge people. It's our job to accept people. And that was my job as a parent, to have that conversation with her. So I think that we definitely, as parents, need to make sure that we're talking to our kids and that we understand what conflicts they're living with and what they're learning, so that we can help them form their ideas, and we can, just be involved. The last thing you want is somebody else teaching your kid values.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And, it seems like a little bit of the theme tonight was, obviously with Purple for Parents is getting parents involved on that side of things, and then getting them involved at home. And, one person that I look up to is Ed. I see pictures with him taking his kids to the Notre Dame game and going out and doing this and having fun and all that. And I think, well, that's what it's all about. And it's, a lot of it is a two-parent home, the nuclear family. I mean, we have a lot of single parents that are struggling because, as Lucy says, we had one person out working for the government and one working for the family. When you only have one, then stuff starts going without. And a lot of times, a overworked, overstressed parent is not going to have time for kids. So Ed, what solution would you have for this situation that looks like it's getting to be a pretty slippery slope?
First of all, I would invite Tiffany to speak with my sisters or my stepfather, because who doesn't talk to his daughter at all because she's a lesbian. So I know that there's plenty of kids out there that face that, and I appreciate. I honestly applaud you and any other parent that makes that effort. I I grew up with a single mother who I don't think she owned a new car until she was well, probably to her 40s, and wore Goodwill clothes because her kids always came first. And so I consider myself blessed, but I also and my kids are that way. There's stuff that people could say personally that you need to do this, you don't go on vacations, you don't, none of that is important to me. My kids are. But I also understand on the flip side that not every parent feels that way. Not every parent sees it that way. I try my best to try to reach out to other parents and and try to get that, but it's difficult because a lot of people didn't grow up with that same type of mentality. And I don't know the answer on how we reinstill that, John. I really wish I did. I've tried to impact the people around me. A lot of what you see posted on social media is trying to get that conversation going with other dads. I speak to a lot of other dads. But yeah, I think it does start with the parents. But I think the assumption that we all love our parents, we may all love our parents, but in a different way. And I think a lot of these kids are lacking that structure and support from home. And whether it's the government or not or whoever, somebody needs to provide that, and I just don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take the last word on this one tonight before we do the conspiracy theory. What I think that, what I've noticed is, we're talking to Rhonda Miller here. She's female. I look at the substitute list, and there's over 200 jobs in just Wayne Township for substitutes. And there's ne'er a man on there that, most of the teachers are women. It's the perception that, this is women's work and, men aren't supposed to teach. And, I just want to make a challenge to men to step up. I think we are really lacking a lot of men leadership. And Ed, I brought you up as somebody who is involved with their kids. And I see a lot of guys that just sort of go to work. I supply the money and, the wife stays at home or takes care of the kids or whatever, and not a lot of involvement. So I'm going to say a challenge to the men and to step up and be a substitute teacher, be a teacher or whatever. And, I just think that, we gotta start paying attention as men and get in the game because there's a lot of work to be done. There's a little verse in the Bible that says the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few. And it's we all got to pitch in and get this done. Well, this has been a good show. I really hate for the technical difficulties we had with Alex and Rhonda. We're going to make you stick around for conspiracy theory, but you don't have to participate unless you want to. So I'm sort of making mine up right now. I mean, it's a true statement. So everybody get ready for your tinfoil hats, and I'll go ahead and play the intro to that.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out, and let's see what's going on this week.
Yeah, so, Rhonda, we don't put you on the hot seat. Oh, look at this. We got...
I love Tiffany's.
Yeah, so this is our tinfoil hat moment. This is where we come up with, well, Lucy has conspiracy facts. Ed has conspiracy theory. I have conspiracy theory. And Tiffany usually, she just shakes her head and looks good in her tinfoil thing and all that. So, yeah, this is sort of, this was another serious topic. There's occasions we have pretty serious topics, and, our education of our children and our kids are our future. And man, somebody made a comment, maybe it was Tiffany, about, hey, these kids need to get it together so they can pay for our Social Security. I'm a little worried right now, and I won't be having any bologna for my bread when I retire. So, we gotta step it up here. So let's go. I'm going to go with Lucy, because she's got the new background and the new light and everything. She just looks so professional tonight. So Lucy, I'm sorry, another brick in the wall. What is your conspiracy theory, and does it have Bill Gates involved?
Oh, absolutely it does. It would not be a conspiracy fact without Bill Gates and his money being involved. And maybe I'll even invoke the name of George Soros as well. The fact is that they were always coming for your kids. The fact is that it was always their intention to separate you from your children so that they could become the authority figure to your children instead of you. We are dealing with a spiritual battle, principalities and things in high places, go look it up, the keywords. I can't quote it right now. But the fact of the matter is this is a battle for the very souls of your children. And it's Bill Gates who wants to harvest them, first by separating you and then by inculcating communism and, and all those sorts of things. So I'm not quite as eloquent tonight, because what I really want to do is encourage you to read the book Educating for a New World Order by B.K. Eekman. And Rhonda could probably recommend a couple of books as well, but that was the one that got me thinking.
Yeah, stick those in the comments, because you're always our book of the week person that puts that on there. So Tiffany, what do or don't you have this evening for us?
I really have nothing outside of the usual. Although my book this week that I picked up at church is called Life is Messy. That's my book. That's one of my goals is to read a little bit more. It's by Matthew Kelly. Absolutely fantastic book about making life a little bit better. I encourage you to pick it up at probably your local Catholic church, because they seem to be at most of the Catholic churches around here. But Life is Messy by Matthew Kelly.
Yeah, no, everybody knows life is messy, especially if you eat a chocolate bar on a hot day. So, Ed, I don't even want to know what the heck you got going on there. I don't even want to know, but tell me anyway.
At celebration time, Niners made the playoffs. I regret anybody doesn't realize yet, Colts totally fan. I don't know if they were trying to help the Jaguars not get the first round pick or something. My conspiracy theory, but before I get there, I gotta say, Tiffany, my son walked in the room the other day. Mom bought him a T-shirt that says "Hide and Seek, Go Champ of the World," and and my daughter instantly looked at his shirt and said, "Look, it's Tiffany's boyfriend." And so it's a family thing. But my conspiracy theory of the week has to do with the Colts. I think they actually put their A game on Spirit Airlines, and somehow it just disappeared somewhere. So sorry, see you guys, see Colts fans next year.
Yeah, the
Said by
Spirit
somebody who's
Airlines.
not planning to fly anytime soon. Oh wow, Spirit's gonna get you.
Yeah.
Well, Rhonda, this is the point where you jump in if you have a conspiracy. If you have anything that you want to throw out there that's crazy or whatever, this is the time to do it. Or you can just simply say pass, and then I'll I'll land this lead balloon airplane down on the runway.
I think I'll pass tonight.
Yeah, this is it's interesting this time. Well, now I'm going to feed off of a little bit of all of the conspiracy theories. So, actually, Bill Gates owns Spirit Airlines. Now he's going to use Spirit Airlines to fly to Alaska to pick up Bigfoot, because Bigfoot is actually going to be substitute teaching here in Indianapolis school. Right, exactly. And he's going to be teaching with George Soros, and they're going to be teaching a class on communism. And actually, it's going to be home ec on how to clean a carpet. So, these are important things that kids need to know. And hey, is that Bigfoot or Wookiee? Is that
it's Wookiee?
Oh, the Wookiee. Okay.
I have a type. Come on, right?
Yeah.
That's
I said we need more men in this world to step up. So this would be a good time to, and in the Bigfoot's case, to be to step out and let us see him. So, hey, that's a true story right there about the Spirit Airlines, Bill Gates, George Soros, and the Bigfoot all into one thing. And
and they hired the Colts offensive line to be their bodyguards. That's why they had to get back so soon.
Yeah, and they're going to go on the Andrew Luck diet. I don't know if you saw Andrew Luck last night, but he looked like he was not a football player anymore. So, and then poor Carson Wentz. Oh boy, that guy, he got crucified for his poor performance and all that. So, hey, we'll save that for next time. But hey, Rhonda, thanks for being on. And I think this was a good show. I really feel like we just sort of scratched the surface of this stuff, but let's see how these bills play out. And I'll have some more substitute teaching stories to come up. I'm actually teaching gym class to 6th graders on this Friday. So this will be interesting. So with that said, everybody give us the peace out, and let's end this deal up, man. We'll see you next week when we have Danny Niederberger on, and he's going to be running for the Senate, and he's actually trying to get signatures to get on for the U.S. Senate against Todd Young. And I think Lucy knows Todd Young a little bit. So we'll see if we can't help him get some of those signatures, because you may not agree with him, but my gosh, everybody deserves a chance if they want to get on the ballot. So we'll tune in for that next week. And then after that, we got another great show that I'll tell you about later. And then we have, our debut of the Forensic Foreplay, which is going to be, I don't know if you remember, John Wayne Bobbitt and Lorena Bobbitt is going to be the first topic. And the name of the show is going to be The Short End of the Stick. So I think you're going to want to watch. You're going to want this. Dee Dee is on fire to get this
good
thing
one.
going. And I know it's going to be fun. And then Mark Small before us. So he's got the Civil Discourse now. And then my wife's doing the Do Something Indie. So the Chateau de Mars Hill studio is growing well. And so with that said, hey, let's sign this thing off, everybody. So peace out.
Good night, Rusty. Good night, Carrie. Good night, Janet and Thor and Spiro.
And John Boy. Good night, John Boy. Good night, John Boy.
Night.